And we're live. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Movie Bros, your favorite podcast where we dive into our favorite movies two at a time, one old, one new. And I am sitting in for the illustrious, the glamorous Nary Science, who is away on assignment. What assignment that is, who knows? But with me, I get to join the regulars. We have Hilda
Hey
at Tabletop
guys,
Girl, Tabletop Gamer Girl, and we have Chad Valdez down below.
our resident legal expert.
Ugh.
Yeah. Thank you guys for letting me jive in. Feel free to talk over me as I butcher all of my hosting duties. And I'm just
We
happy to be
missed you.
back,
We
guys.
missed you,
Yeah.
Mike. I know
Yeah,
it's been a long
bit.
time.
It has
We've
been a
definitely
minute.
missed you.
I'm very happy to be back for these movies because I now had some time to free up to come back to the show, and I was very excited that this is the horror movies because Neri's a little scaredy.
Yes,
He
he
does not like horror.
won't let us do it half the time.
Yeah, and that's why I'm here, guys. I'm here to clean up the scraps, is what I am. And so we're covering.
It's the scary
Uh,
episode.
It's the Evil Dead Rise and Death Becomes Her. What a pairing! If I was programming a night of cinema, this would be perfect.
It would be amazing.
It's almost like double Evil Dead Rise, double Death Becomes Her.
We'll get into it, but I feel like Death Becomes Her is like Tim Burton Evil Dead Rise. We'll get into it.
It's like the comedy version of Evil Dead.
Yeah. So let's start with Evil Dead Rise. Now, I'll read you the synopsis. It is a I already fucked up. A twisted tale of two estranged sisters whose reunion is cut short by the rise of flesh-possessing demons, thrusting them into a primal battle for survival as they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable. Now, what do we think the IMDb score is on the? Oh, we get into that later. What is your first impressions? Let's get our first take. Hilda, what do you think?
Blood-soaked nightmare fuel. If I had to, I have not seen a horror movie a new horror movie this gory in such a long time. Like, I can't remember, and I like scary movies. I cannot remember the last time I watched a movie kind of like peeking through my fingers like a child, like
Yes.
there were times where I found myself covering my face and just listening to the audio and whispering to Sean, just tell me when it's over. Like, I can't watch this scene. Yeah, I would say blood-soaked nightmare fuel.
Did you know what you were getting into?
I did, to a point. It's been a long time though since I've seen an Evil Dead Rise movie. I've seen the old ones, like the first ones are
The
probably
70s ones, yeah.
Yeah, like those are the ones that I've seen like the most, right? I'm sure there's some I've missed in there.
There was a reboot in 2013, I want to say. 2016.
So yeah, I definitely missed that one. So it's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen an Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah. Chad, what about you? What are your first impressions?
So I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was perfect. As far as an Evil Dead movie goes, I loved all the tropes were there. I mean, it didn't have Bruce Campbell, so it's always going to be at a loss. Everything's going to be at a loss without a Bruce Campbell.
It technically did, but it was just his voice.
Yeah, just his voice. Yeah,
he was the priest.
He was the voice.
The voice on the record. Yeah. But like even the Evil Dead one before it was which was the kind of the remake of the original was they're not even tied to, as far as I could tell, at least this one and that one, let alone tied to the original stuff. But regardless of prior ties, it was a good horror movie, kept me on the edge of my seat, didn't know which way it was going to fly. I loved the design of the book. I loved that that it was a record playing, kind of like the old tapes were playing in the old one. I love that the DJ couldn't stop it. It was really good. I thought the slow meltdown to insanity for the mom, or semi-slow, I should say, and then just the horror of everything kind of rolling around, and just that. We'll get into further details in a minute, but yes, it was a blood-soaked nightmare. But I say that in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Nova's
totally
like
meant it.
blood-soaked nightmare, and Chad's like
footnote.
blood-soaked nightmare.
Yeah. No, footnote on my previous comment. That was in a good way, like blood-soaked nightmare fuel, like in a good way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll say this: my first, I love that Evil Dead series. I loved the Ash versus Evil Dead TV show.
So good.
I'm so sad when that got canceled. I wish more people were weird like that. Like those shows that were really swinging for the fences really kind of got more play, because with streaming now, I feel like there's you don't have to make it super marketable, but I guess Stars already doesn't make a lot of money, and I don't know, whatever. It was sad to see it go. And
Listen,
have seen
the fact that it existed and it got, what was it, 3 seasons? That was, I mean, I think it was a little early for its time. I think it set a foundation for other stuff. But if it came out now, it'd probably get like 6 seasons.
And you know what? Sometimes 3 seasons is enough of something. My wife and I have been talking about like, what I don't want to get into something that isn't a limited series, like Blackbird or the other, what is, 1883 or whatever. There's like 10 episodes, it's not limited series, mini series. It used to be called a mini series. That's what it should be called.
Yeah, like the old Sci-Fi Dune.
Yeah, like tell me a complete story without dragging shit out, Right. And what I like about this movie. Okay, so my first impression, I like this movie. I went in knowing all of these things, but I haven't seen them in so long. They're not fresh in my memory. So that when I was watching this, there was a lot of like, in my mind, can this movie stand on its own versus is it a homage to the throwbacks? Is it like too much fan service? And I feel like it walked the line very well.
Yes.
And it can absolutely stand alone as like a good gore movie, which is what the original was, like practical effects. The original was all about like, let's see how gory we can make this cabin in the woods.
And no money.
And in this one, there was some real moments of like genuinely grossed me out that I feel like, that was gross. But also like, since it needed to stand on its own, I was like, oh, that was a creative way to be gross.
Right.
If that makes sense, like it was like, oh yeah, of course that's what would happen. And I'm talking, of course, spoiler alert, at the end when the something in my tummy, what were the creepy crawlies in my tummy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Grossed me out in the best way, where I was like, oh, these guys are swinging for the fences, and it can fit within all of the lore. Because the way it starts and ends really kind of leaves it like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and it totally, like I was saying before, it doesn't tie, like it doesn't. There's no real tie-ins into any of the prior movies. So, like you said, it could totally, like I went and saw it with a friend who had never seen any of the Evil Deads, and he thought he loved it. So he didn't need to know anything that was like the in joke or the fan service or anything. Like I told him afterwards, like, oh, this was that.
Yeah,
He was like, yeah, that helps, but it was still awesome.
Right, like the fact that you could, like, even for someone like me, right? I like the Evil Dead movies, but it had been years since I had seen like one of the old ones, and I missed the last one, but it didn't matter. I still went in and was able to watch this, and still got like the Evil Dead vibe. But if I had forgotten something, it didn't matter.
Right,
I could still enjoy it.
It definitely stood on its own for sure.
Yeah.
I did love the visual modernizations of the trope, like the drone shot versus the steady cam shot. So Evil Dead was very like the demon force in the woods was always like a steady cam shot through the roots of things. And then when the movie opened with a drone shot, I was like, oh, what a clever way to like subconsciously put it in our heads that we are seeing new versions of old things to like put it away. We're going this direction and we're modernizing and all that stuff. I was like, interesting approach.
And also the fact that it was set in a city, like that hadn't been done before. It was always like, I mean, Ash versus Evil Dead kind of did it in a small town.
Yeah.
But that was after all the older lore had already been built up. This was 100% in the middle of an apartment building with all the collateral damage you would expect.
So I was going to bring that up because it is like I did know that it was set in a city. Like that's the like one thing I did know going into it, right? I was like, and I thought to myself, these are all like a cabin in the woods, and part of the creep factor is like, oh my God, you're in the middle of nowhere. Like, how are they going to survive? And I was like, how are they going to do this in a city, like in a building in a city? And then realizing that they're high up, it's like a building that nobody cares about, and it's totally basically like it's falling apart. It's abandoned. It's going to be demolished. Like no one's going to respond there. Maintenance doesn't care, and so
there was so much foreshadowing, like bad construction foreshadowing, or just in general of like, how many Chekhov's guns do we need? And they all pay off. Like I was genuinely like, oh, this all works. It all was pretty solid.
It was terrifying. Like you're trapped in you're on like the whatever floor of an abandoned building is just as scary as a cabin in the middle.
You might as well be in the middle of nowhere.
Away from help. Like in both scenarios, you're totally out of help's like reach.
I wondered that myself, and then I knew the elevator was going to go fast because that's like the first thing they're going to attack. But when the stairwell like went because of the book Awakening, essentially, that was I was like, oh okay.
As someone who just moved to California, and I felt my first earthquake in my life recently.
Oh God.
It wasn't what I expected, but it is something that that came out of nowhere, right? So like it's perfectly reasonable for an earthquake to fuck up a building like that, and to me, when they incorporated that, they're in Los Angeles in this old beat up building, I was like, and there's demons under there, and it was a former bank, so there's like a vault underneath. I was like, okay, like all of this plays perfectly, not even like jumping to unreasonable things. It was like perfectly like a believable foundation based reality for all of this crazy shit to then happen in. And
you can tell, like I'm from Florida, and the hurricanes don't freak me out, but fucking earthquakes like weird me the hell out. Like the ground should not move.
Right. Dude, I'm with you, Chad. I'm with you. Like we at one point,
it's a category 4. We'll have a party.
It's okay.
Well,
like you can prepare. You've got like a week.
The ground moves. I'm on the roof. Like
right. You could see it coming, and it's like But when you like, if it just look on a big enough scale, everything is fluid, right? Even the earth. So absolutely. That's one of those things that also I like the idea. It was great. I do love the idea that this force has history, that you don't need to know too much about it, and flipping through the images of the book was like kind of revealing what was hidden in the camera work, if that makes sense. Like it was some of the really gross shit at the end was alluded to in the book, like, and it was like talking about like the pages would flip, basically not spoon feeding you what was happening, but giving you like a lot of clues as to like what you're about to see, and then paying off with the real thing was very, I think, important to believability across the board of like, it's not just coming out of nowhere. This giant multi-limbed monster had existed already and was they tried to fight it, and the recordings on the vinyls were like a clue into like, you're fucked. There's no getting out of this. And that's really a moment. Did you guys feel like this was going to be, there was a victory possible? At a certain point, I was like, yeah, just kill yourself. You're dead. Like, there's no way you're going to beat this.
I was curious to see if it was going to go, because, you never know when they're going to try to set up like a full-on sequel or whatever. And like, they're going to have basically maybe one survivor. And I thought it might have been the little girl, because they do have a problem ganking little girls in most of these movies. But like, I didn't expect the sister to survive. I thought she was going to go down in like a final heroic stand or something. And like kind of akin to the last movie, where like the guy you thought was going to survive totally had to sacrifice himself to get his sister out.
The setup in this one, generally, they could have done that. I feel like they could have just everybody died, because again, it doesn't necessarily have a super strong tie into the,
and they could have just been like, oh look, the police come by and they grab the book because it's the only thing that's left, and that moves it into the next
right. And like that
Horrorville.
Right, and then like the book could continue on, or the records or whatever, like torturing people. But I mean, they could have like killed off all these characters.
I'm just for the record, if you find a book in a vault or wrapped in barbed wire, leave it alone.
Just leave it. Just leave it.
If it's written in Kandarian, don't read it.
Yeah. Did you see the graphic design of that book? I've caught myself like, this is horrific, but also like, what a beautiful piece of prop work.
Absolutely.
I loved it. And I was like, great. Man, I would want, because the spines holding because it wasn't the Necronomicon, it was another book.
No, it was definitely another book.
So that means there's more,
or at least that version of the Necronomicon.
Sure.
It didn't really say it was or was not the Necronomicon.
Doesn't he say he says like it's called the Book of the Dead for a reason?
Yeah, they do say it's the Book of the Dead, but there's more than one Book of the Dead running around.
Right. So it's like, which one is?
Now, my question is, if you were to if you were to go on a lake trip with your friends and one of them scalps the other friend, how would you would you like stick around? Like, there's that opening, the bookends, because it really does bookend the movie, that little scene. So in my mind, I was like, oh, what a good payoff for all of the stuff we just watched, to then say it's still reasonable that one girl upstairs was like, oh my God, what a crazy earthquake, how weird. There was that moment where I was like, this is bullshit, but also perfect.
Yes.
If we're on a camping trip and like, Mike, you scalp Chad, I'm gonna be like, I gotta go.
At least that's your reaction. My reaction would be, if I have my gun, everybody's dead.
I'm like, I'm out.
I've seen the zombie apocalypse movies. It's not happening. We're not playing this game.
I am not prepared for this. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Have you guys
not gonna go digging for clues?
Yeah, no, I don't care. I'm not interested in the lie.
Unwrap binded, protected artifacts. I'm just gonna be like, I'm out.
Not a hero.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Somebody wrapped this book in barbed wire for a reason. Like in the first.
Have you guys done on the show? Have you guys done on the show Fallen, the Denzel Washington movie?
Oh, we haven't yet. It's one of my favorites.
Well, amazing, one of my favorites. And that ending of this movie was very similar, akin to it. I don't want to ruin Fallen for anybody, but there's that feeling of like, oh, they did it. Like they got it. This story has concluded.
Right.
But there's still more to be unpacked. And in my mind, this is a prequel to the demon getting out into the woods.
It's very possible. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like it could be explained. That's the thing, is open to interpretation in terms of like, this could be explained in this universe a million different ways.
Yes.
And that is exciting to me because I always love the idea of, I don't believe, like, I'm not big on shared universes and everything has to be the cinematic, the MCU, but I love hearing stories that exist in the similar reality. Like I was always one that the MCU should make genre films, like a Ghost Rider horror movie would be perfect. Like they should embrace genre. And in this world, I think you could actually have multiple films happening that if you told me they all exist in the Evil Dead universe, I'd be like, perfect. Does it take away from the individual movies? No. I think that is more interesting.
Well, it's one of those things, like I actually really dig shared universes. But here's the problem. Hollywood, as its usual stupidity, takes everything that's good about shared universes and turns it on its head. Because they don't know how to follow their own rules. They don't know how to do anything. And they have no creativity once they get a few successes under their belts. And they just hit the copy-paste button too often. Right. So if you do it right, like there's no reason that you couldn't have a horror film in Star Wars, or like you said, a Ghost Rider film in Marvel. First of all, not only is our world huge, but like Star Wars is a galaxy.
Exactly. Why so narrow? Why are we telling a story about one family? In this particular case, I do want, because we're going to get into last looks right now, because we're going to like bounce over to the other film. But what is the performances I want to talk about, because we really talked about the world and the story and all that stuff, but we haven't really talked about the performances. And I think that is important to the actors that are playing both versions. The demon version and the normal version is such an interesting thing in this movie. How did you feel about the performance of the mom, who was like the main evil lady, the first one,
That's Alyssa
and then the children
Sutherland,
as
right?
it goes down. Huh?
Alyssa Sutherland, I think Ellie, right?
Yeah, let me see.
That's her. Yeah, for some reason she's like 6th place on the top on the billing, but whatever.
Yes, yeah, Alyssa Sutherland, and yeah, there was like the wow, it's not listed in order of things. So let me find out.
Yeah, I mean, I loved
Morgan Davies was Danny, and Lily Sullivan is Beth. Beth was the sister that came.
Yes,
and Ellie is the mom.
Ellie, so she looks there was a lot of mouth acting and face acting in this movie. That I was like, as I was watching it, and then when all of makeup is done to make them the Deadite, it was there was a lot of like, she seemed already naturally to have a very elastic face. Yes. And then when they did it when she was in character, it was like, that is also kind of a payoff. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, we see her as this, she's very beautiful, but she's got a like kind of a unique looking face. And then when they do it all up crazy and she's smiling and all like coming out of the bathtub, all the bathtub acting was fantastic.
And the features are just like over exaggerated, but it's just like, are you doing that or is that CGI? I can't tell.
It was great.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah, I thought she did an amazing job. And the makeup was top notch. One of the things that I've always loved about the Deadites is that when the demon takes you, one, it does tend to take beauty first, right? Like you see in a lot of the old Evil Deads. That's definitely a trope, is that it goes after the beautiful first, so that you could twist beauty into horror very easily. And then what she did with her mouth, especially that like, mommy's got to eat you now, or like whatever. It was like, what?
So creepy.
So awesome.
As all of the mommy things were like, like I was when
I don't even have kids, right? And we're not having kids, but it's like I see like little like young kid actors. What's the little one, Cassie? I think it's like there. And I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my God, like this little girl I mean, she's an actor, right?
Yeah.
But
did a great job.
But I'm like, I'm a grown adult watching this movie covering my eyes. And they use 6,500 liters of fake blood in this movie. And I'm thinking, dude, you're like 10 years old. So I find now like older watching these horror movies, but like when there's kids involved, little kids in horror movies freak me out. Like more than serial killers,
they've always
slashers, tiny little creepy children staring. And I know that necessarily wasn't the case here. However, but then, man, I'm like, now I see these like kid actors and I'm like, are you going to be okay after this? Like, I'm kind of worried for you.
Well, the reality is on set, everything is the phoniest of balonies. Like you see,
nearly as real.
None of it is, like I've been like when you're on set, like everything is fucking so obviously fake. It's amazing that anything looks good in post. Like genuinely, like cinematographers and are magicians, and special effects people are magicians. On set here, there was a lot of practical effects, but then they call cut, and then it's like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like,
you see the guy who was like horrifying 1 second, like, hey Bob, can I get a cigarette? Like whatever.
Oh, is there a sandwich over there? Can I get a sandwich? Like they're like, I'm gonna eat you, children, and then it's like, oh, and cut. Hey, what like high fives, good take. It really does. Like, unless someone is like, I can't imagine like the method acting, but like there's pictures of on set of like in the original Alien where they had that dude in the alien costume where he's just got the head off and he's like sitting there chilling.
Hey, dude.
So. Whenever I see it in the thing, I'm always wondering if they watch the movie afterwards, if that messes them up more than the process of film. Because if they're children watching this movie, this is not for them.
It's not.
I remember reading or listening to an interview from Kirsten Dunst, an interview with the vampire, and all the shit that went on in that movie. And she was like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was 12.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me. They just said, say this line and look scared.
Yeah.
Okay?
And to be fair, like, that's what acting is. I love the scene of Ian McKellen where he's like, how do I act so well? He's like, do I know? It's like, how did I know what words to say? There was a script. How did I know where to stand? Somebody told me. Like that's it's literally like so straightforward, and it's kind of like magic to see it done well.
And to be fair, like you're talking about how everything looks fake there. I've seen dead bodies in real life. Like I went into the mortician's office more than once when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a living, or a freak as a child. And I looked at the bodies and I'm like, are we on set?
Yeah, it looks fake.
Because dead bodies do not look real.
I've worked in healthcare for I don't know how many over however long, and like it's weird when you're around death. You know what a dead body looks like. Yeah. It's not scary. It's the least scary thing because there's nothing gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like it
makes a few weird sounds every now and then. Something really weird can happen, but like nothing like crazy.
If something weird happens, a lot of things had to happen before that to get to where it's weird. And honestly, like it's I don't want to speak so glibly about death, but it's like it's basic.
Yeah.
Like only in fantasies. Only in fantasy can something bad happen to you when you're dead. So this is like the fear of like taking the afterlife away from people or cursing you to whatever. Like, are they present when they're possessed? Is there still that moment of fighting the person? Who knows?
I mean, according to like what Ash went through, yes, but Ash is the only one who ever survived the possession. Yeah, that's true. And look, there's an argument to be made if that's still real in this world, and maybe who knows what's going to happen. Let's go into last looks. What facts do we have about this movie? What was the Rotten Tomatoes?
So the Rotten Tomatoes, the Rotten Tomatoes score is 84%. And anyone want to take a stab at the audience score?
Oh, I'm going to go high. I'm going to go 92.
I'm going to say lower, I think. I liked it, but I was a fan. So I'm going to say it's less. I'm going to take the under. I don't know what number, but I will take the under.
Okay. The audience score was 76. I was actually surprised.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was surprised. It's the first Evil Dead movie in the franchise to pass the 100 million mark. So it's the highest grossing. It's the highest grossing movie in the Evil Dead franchise, which I thought was interesting. So I was surprised that the audience score was less than the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Seriously. Like they never critical writers never give horror movies any credit. So surprised.
But on a budget of 17 million, it made 146 million.
Ooh, that's why everybody loves horror movies. That's why I made 5 million B1s.
Yeah.
Let's make a cheap ass movie.
Yeah, that 6,500 liters joke is actually accurate. It was actually 6,500 liters of fake blood were used on this movie. That is a lot of fake blood.
That elevator scene alone had to consume a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, that was right out of The Shining. It was beautiful.
Let me see what my notes say. Let's just real quick. The sound effects and the squelchiness of everything was great. The sound direction was fantastic, where it really created a mood. And also it did the Stranger Things thing where it says the descriptor is not just makes a noise, it's squelching and blubbering and like all kinds of like.
I haven't had a chance to watch it with closed captions yet. I'm totally watching it with closed captions.
I watch everything with closed captions. Take care of your hearing, children.
Well, I mean, I have children, so I generally watch everything with closed captions, but I haven't seen it on.
I went to too many loud. I went to too many loud concerts.
Same.
I'm like,
I used to hug the speakers. Like if I couldn't feel the bass moving my bones around, it wasn't.
I will say my universal response to horror movies is "Quien te manda," is like. Because I will say that this all could have been avoided if Danny had just stayed in his fucking room with his DJ equipment and not touched the goddamn book. Like that's the universal answer to every horror movie.
Or hit it again. And why did you stop?
Right. This. Oh, what was I gonna say? That's my. There's so many payoffs. I'm trying to. There's like a list of.
This I thought it was interesting that Warner Brothers had initially decided that this was just going to be like a streaming release. However, it received really positive reviews and test screenings, and so that's when the studio opted to release the movie in theaters globally, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
I guess
I think they've been moving away from the like direct to streaming.
Well,
I think they lost too much.
as things have been like bouncing back a little bit, you know.
Yeah, but I honestly thought
year, so it's.
Well, I honestly thought that people were getting not sick of going out, right? Like that's never going to be a thing. Like there's always going to be some level of movie theater, but I thought Cinebistro, that kind of like high level experience, was what was going to replace normal theaters because they're charging so much still. That like and our audio and screen size, like I mean, I'm sorry, I have an 82-inch TV now.
Yeah, it's hard to justify going to see in the theaters. I had, if the theater going experience, so everyone post COVID was like, let's get back to the theaters, and it's like, okay, give us something worth going to the theater for.
Back to, seriously.
So
the fact that Top Gun Maverick made like my top of that year is both cool, but like that, it was definitely not. It would never have survived prior years.
Mm-hmm. I will say on the dismount that we are lucky that this movie got the attention it did and got the money that it did, because it is a good, for Evil Dead fans, I feel like a good addition to the series as like an anthology piece. It exists in the world, you know. But let's go around and give our ratings, rankings. Hilda, what do you have for me for Evil Dead Rise?
I'm gonna go 4 out of 5 Dusty Records. Cause just leave that shit where you found it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do love the record being like the original podcasting, where the guy's like, "Hey, this is what we did, and we fucked up, and I had to kill the guys," and it basically was like the blueprint for what was happening, but like it just felt like a podcast.
Yes.
I had one alternate, but I won't say it in case it's one of yours, and I'll say it at the end.
Maybe.
Go ahead.
Chad,
all right, Chad.
All right, I'm gonna give it my 5 out of 5 chainsaws. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't wait to see it again. Like I'm definitely gonna make my wife watch it whether she wants to or not. It's gonna be amazing.
That's the sign of a good horror movie, where you're like, I can't wait to freak people out with this.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 Staffanies. Baby doll head on a staff. That's what I'm giving it. For that the payoff where it breaks and it has a sharp point. I was like, ooh, that's going into somebody. And it did. And it paid off. Everything structurally was a solid movie. The only reason I don't give it a full 5 out of 5 is because I do feel like, because I like Evil Dead, any flaws that it had, I was like, it's Evil Dead. But an average person would not be willing to give it that. So 4 out of 5 as a movie, I think.
Okay, fair.
All right. Anything else? Are we all ready to move on to
that is a wrap on Act 1?
That is a wrap. Yeah, we're gonna turn it around. We're gonna take it from the other side.
We need a sound effect of like a clapboard.
Yeah, really.
We need a soundboard. There's a lot that we could mess around with. But we'll start now. We're gonna get into our Death Becomes Her.
1992's.
Originally released in 1992, and I love the very simple description and synopsis that leaves so much out. When a fading actress learns of an immortality treatment, she sees it as a way to outdo her longtime rival.
That is like the most basic description ever.
There's nothing there, but in like a good way. It's like there's no, like, it leaves out all of the. Well, it leaves out the whole movie, really.
All of the whole movie. Yeah.
So what I love, and I know we've mentioned this before, but it's what I love about old movie trailers, and I miss like that time of movie trailers.
You mean they could actually tease you without giving away the entire movie? That required skill? No.
There's so many times where, like, and I say trapped in a trailer, which is when you're not seeing a trailer like on your TV or on your phone, but you're in a movie theater about to watch another movie and you are trapped in a trailer. And the trailer is so long and so detailed, right? Yes. That you're just like, I just watched a 6-minute version of the entire movie.
Like, I'm good. Like I've seen it. I get it.
I get it. Yep.
So I do miss that time of short synopsis, short trailers.
I mean, the last one I can remember really thinking about that, like, really did a good job, are all the old the prequel Star Wars movies trailers. So much. You're like, and what does this mean?
Yeah. Give us more. What do we give our first impressions? Going around the table, Hilda, what is your first impression of this movie? I will say, of this watching of this movie. because it is a classic.
That's true. It is a rewatch. So I rewatched it after not having seen it in a really long time, and it was just as fun. It was just, I know fun is like my word on this podcast, but it really was. I found it just as fun as the last time I saw it, and as the first time I saw it. It just, I mean, Bruce Willis and Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep and it just great cast.
It was like peak
ridiculous, like ridiculous premise, right? Ridiculous scenarios, absolutely ridiculous scenarios. And just such a fun one. And I mean, I'm a fan of like dark comedies. Like I like black comedies. I think they're I love laughing inappropriately.
Yeah.
Because it's a nervous thing for me. Like I laugh on roller coasters and I laugh when something, I'm like, oh, this is awkward.
Same.
Oh, this is just, oh God, this is going to be so bad. And
there's no risk there's no actual danger, but you still feel the fear. To me, that's hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed rewatching this after not having seen it in so long.
Chad, how about you? What do you got? First impression.
So, I mean, I saw this movie when I was like 11 or 12 because it's like one of those soft horror movies that you could kind of watch as a kid that wouldn't like really freak you out, but it's still in the horror genre. So I definitely love this movie. It's one of my, I think it's peak Bruce Willis, like before he got way too serious with himself.
Interesting.
And like I love his action stuff. Don't get me wrong, Die Hard is amazing, yada yada yada. But I love his comedy. I think his comedy.
Was it?
He was trying.
Was this just after? Sorry, now I'm thinking out loud. Sorry, was this just after the first Die Hard? This was after the first.
Definitely after the first Die Hard. I'm not sure if it was after Die Hard 2 or not. I can't remember.
Gotcha.
Die Hard 2. Definitely after the first Die Hard though.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep are always amazing. I mean, Meryl Streep still to this day, like I haven't seen anything with Goldie Hawn in a while, but Meryl Streep's still rocking it, 30 years later. But she's great. I mean, like it's always one of my favorite lines is like, I can see my butt.
Yeah.
And I see my butt.
This, that's fantastic. I hadn't seen this movie since it was like a tape that my mom had in the house. It was like a VHS tape that existed and pre-cable and pre-streaming and pre-on-demand and all that stuff. You had your library of tapes that you would go to, or like when the cable would go out, or the weather was bad and a satellite dish can't pick up signal back in the DirecTV days. Yep. You had your archive of videos, and that was one that for some reason my mom not for some reason, it is a huge deal to have Meryl Streep, Bruce Willis, Goldie Hawn, like all these big names, peak Isabella Rossellini, and then also like the pure silliness of the reality, right? Like if this is real, it is that's why it felt Tim Burton-y to me, because there was like a cartoonish element to everything. Goldie Hawn getting blasted in the stomach with a shotgun and it leaves a hole is fucking Looney Tunes.
Yes,
it is straight up Looney Tunes. And
she even sits like through the thing. It was like a steak.
She throws it and it goes right through her, and then it's like, no, and then it's so much comedy involved in what's going on here that it was like hard to like. I was not afraid of this movie at all. It was just so silly. My wife loves this movie, so she watched it with me and was saying the lines before the actors, and I was like, baby, please, I gotta watch. I understand. And then she was like, it's like one of her favorite movies, so it was like fun watching it with her because she loves it so much. And I was just like blown away because I had forgotten about so many moments, about also like if the reality of it is super dark, right? Yes. Like
that you could never die, like ever. Like even when you're broken into itty bitty pieces, apparently.
Yeah, when Liesl, Isabella Rossellini, when her character, she's just like, take care of your body. It's going to be with you for a long time. And then now it's like they're fighting, and she's got a hole in her stomach, and her neck is broken, and all the like. Literally, you guys lasted 5 minutes in an eternal life. You're already like messing yourself up.
Yeah, there's so much. Well, let's get into it. We have the Meryl Streep, the opening where she's playing a bad actress when they were like talking shit about her, I was like, "That's Meryl Streep, motherfuckers! Don't you talk shit about Meryl Streep?" But it was interesting to see Meryl Streep do comedy because that was also not something that she was doing.
She's actually said that she really disliked doing this movie.
Oh yeah,
really?
Oh, that's
yeah. That she didn't like the amount of effects that was going to go after it, and that's why she hasn't done any heavy effect movies since.
Right.
So this was like a one and done for her.
So she's never going to be in Star Wars.
Yeah, probably not, unless she's so the General Holdo maneuver here.
Yeah. So she didn't enjoy that process. So I didn't learn that until afterwards, like prepping for this, but that was one of those things that I came across and I'm like, that's really interesting. Then I started thinking about it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I've never seen her in anything else like this. This is the only one that I could think of.
Yeah, I wonder what her opinions on the MC, if she's going to pull a Martin Scorsese and say that these effects movies are not cinema, you know?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's the danger of being. I mean, this movie's about acting also, so like there is that inside baseball of it all, you know?
Right.
But you know, so
Scorsese showed his age with that shit, though.
The special effects company, Industrial Light and Magic, was founded by George Lucas that worked on this, and then they went on to do effects for Jurassic Park after this.
Yeah. Industrial Light and Magic is literally magic. They do crazy stuff.
But they had some first time achievements too with this movie, which is the first time that the texture of human skin was computer generated. And so as much as she hated how heavy effects wise it was kind of cinema groundbreaking in that same note, right?
Right.
But yeah, they actually won an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects for this movie.
There was one scene where
still holds up.
Yeah, I mean, it's still totally watchable.
It really does.
There was a scene where she falls down the stairs for the first time, you know, and then she's all crumpled. She fell like they do in Family Guy, and she's all like crumpled up, and
her neck.
She unfolds her, like they show. It's one of the. There's a lot of stuff happening in the backgrounds in this movie that if you're paying attention, you see stuff. And that part where she's still alive and is like unfolding her body back together or whatever.
Great body horror.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I still don't know how they did it in terms of like they must have had a contortionist there, and then they do a body swap at some point. But it was like genuinely. This was genuinely really like well shot in a way. So in my opinion, the best special effects don't replace everything on screen, they add to it, you know what I mean? Like you don't just do all the performances green screen and then put the background in later. It feels like your eye catches that too much. When you do little stuff like this where it's like added and put, you know, it's dope. Like I really appreciated how well the practical effects were, like the bones sticking out of the neck and how they did the hole in Goldie Hawn is very cool. I mean, it's very tricky.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do we have to ask, would you drink the potion? Would you drink it?
Yes.
No.
Hell yes. Hell yeah. I want to live forever, so yes. But I would run to a cave or something and never see anybody.
Wait, but so you would drink it, now you live forever, you have eternal youth. Does it stipulate that you're the age that you drank it?
So
I think it was your peak. I think it was supposed to be your peak condition. So like it wasn't gonna potentially restore you to youth, but like with your peak, whatever your peak body was. That's why you see like her breast going up and her everything tightening.
Yeah, that was also a great scene. Like
they couldn't recreate that, and they actually had somebody standing behind her and like pushed her boobs up.
No,
yes.
That makes sense.
Can I have that position? Honestly,
yeah. Nope. Yeah, would you drink it, Hilda? Would you do it?
No, I don't think I would. And I do have a question that maybe one of you guys could answer, because I asked, like Sean and I were talking about this too. So obviously at the end, right? Flash forward, and they are completely falling apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Isabella Liesel, right? Liesel was like decades and decades and decades old, because I think I read that originally in the script she was supposed to be like a Cleopatra.
Yeah,
So I'm thinking, so
she's
how
71 in the movie. Like I laughed out loud at the audacity of someone to be 71 years old and have all this ancient Egyptian. I'm like, you're 71. That's not ancient enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you should be way older than that.
But I'm thinking, like, how? So why did she look so great?
Because she hadn't died
she wasn't
yet.
killed.
Yeah.
And bashed repeatedly over the head. Shot.
She lived a life of luxury.
So then it goes to that then. So once you're injured in your post having drunk the potion, do you just continue to decay? Like, aren't you supposed to not?
Well, I think
they
died.
I think they need the force of life to keep you young and that and all that firm stuff and all that. But once you're dead,
they had the fun with all the celebrities.
When we watched this years ago, right? It's like I didn't think about it that deep, right? I didn't get that deep. But this time I actually caught myself like, well, wait a minute. If Liesl had been living like post drinking this potion for decades and still looked amazing, it's like, why were they falling apart just like 30 years later?
Yeah, I think it had a lot to do with the fact that they died.
Yeah, it keeps the body alive as you at peak form, but then that's what she said, take care of your body, it's going to be with you a long time, meaning as long as you're alive, the body's alive, but you still keep it after death. That's the curse.
Right. Like, yeah, that's probably the price you pay.
So that's why she's living this life of luxury. She doesn't want to hurt her body because she knows that if she if her body dies, she's still stuck with the dead body. And the whole reason that they kept Bruce Willis's character along is because he was very good at being a mortician,
right,
and making it look natural. And that's why when he died, or that he was no longer taking care of them, they all look like shit because they were doing it themselves.
Apparently they suck at it even after a couple of decades of experience.
Yeah, for real. And to be fair, like that idea of the corpse being your vessel even after death, I wouldn't drink it. I don't think I could live a life of luxury. Yeah, I don't think I could act like, what if I'm in a car accident one day and I'm screwed? Now I live, but I'm also like how far does that go? Am I just gonna be a head and a skull eventually? You know, like
yeah, exactly.
There's like the forever is a weird thing.
So yeah, I'm a hard no.
You say this like it's a bad thing. I want to be a skull in a jar talking to people.
Yeah, man.
Randomly talking to people.
Yeah, exactly. It's D&D as hell.
I'm gonna be a demi-lich just to talk to
just put the jewels in my eyes.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Way to nerd out, guys. I think we crushed the nerding out in that moment.
You know, Meryl Streep accidentally hit Goldie Hawn during the shovel fight. Like she hit her for real.
How good is Goldie Hawn in this movie, man?
It left us so good. So good. It left a small scar on her face.
For real? Oh, so like legitimately.
Like battle scar.
Wow. Awesome. I totally dig the Goldie Hawn deserves a lot of credit for being like everyone. She was like a ditzy blonde in the 60s and all that stuff, but she plays every character like fantastic. I don't know why
she goes to her like whatever the character requires.
She's great. My mom loved that movie. This is in my mom movie collection where like she had like First Wives Club, another Goldie Hawn piece.
Overboard.
She loved Bette Midler. Overboard. We watched Overboard a million times. Which in hindsight is a fucked up movie. But like she was a fucking star too. I don't think we're giving her enough credit. She was like big time, and she was great in this movie, playing the role of like obsessed jilted lover, and then she shows up in the red dress looking beautiful, like looking insane,
and like ultimate revenge bod.
Yes, exactly, totally.
And that was like totally a thing.
And it was like kind of her fault, I guess, of the whole process was kind of like
she started it.
Yeah, and it all started when she had the whole Ray Finkel situation going on with the mirror and how she hated this guy. And then in therapy, she's like, yeah, I'm better now because now I have a revenge plot, and then she let her out. It's so funny. It was such like a weird, it was also very like peak 90s, if that makes sense. Like the vibe of it was like, oh, this makes sense. The LA plastic surgeon, obsessed with beauty vibe, and then doing everything to hold on to it. And I feel like 20 something, almost 30 years later, we're still like, oh, same.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't think that's changed over
Instagram
hard.
influencers, like the little
Just
potion
new
now is
generation.
just filters
Yeah.
on your Instagram.
Unfortunately, guys, I gotta go.
Yeah, Chad, drop out. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Oh, Chad, you want to give us your rating?
Yeah, give us
real quick?
your rating.
Okay.
1 to 5.
4.5 holes in the stomach.
4.5 holes in the stomach. It's super solid. Thank you, Chad.
Yep. You guys.
We appreciate him. We are also going to get into the end. What do we feel about the Bruce Willis playing Schlubby? I love Bruce Willis playing Schlubby, and I thought he never did it enough. And once he started getting too serious, it was like, no, I miss moonlighting Bruce Willis.
Yes. And it's funny you say that because we actually recently looked up Moonlighting to see if it was like available for streaming anywhere, and it's not. I know that's a side note. We're not really talking about Moonlighting right now, but I loved that era of Bruce Willis, and apparently it's not streaming because of like music rights.
Tons of stuff is not streaming because of that.
Yeah, because the music rights and episodes. So hopefully one day we'll get Moonlighting on streaming. But I love that era of Bruce Willis. I love him not taking himself so seriously in this role. It's a different Bruce Willis. It's not Die Hard Bruce Willis, which it's fun bad. Too. Nothing against Die Hard Bruce Willis. I mean, but it's just nice to see him.
I do think that how do I say this? He is, now with the hindsight of his disease and having, all of the problems where he was doing all these movies at the end of his life where we were like, oh man, is that like his default setting, just to be stoic and whatever? And then you find out he's sick. And I don't want to comment about his later career, not knowing where the line is that he started,
right. Like when,
ill.
Right. Like when did it start?
But like, I would have loved to see Bruce Willis, because this does feel Tim Burton-y. Like this feels like Tim Burton, Bruce Willis. And then on the heels of this movie, my wife and I watched 12 Monkeys. And 12 Monkeys, if it's not on the Movie Bros list, we should do it, because that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And it is Bruce Willis, again, not being the badass. He's like a crazy person. And it's such a different flavor, like a different performance. I love it.
Let's add that one and see how we can do a good tie-in to something.
I don't know. 12 months. I mean, look, watching it post-COVID is also like, ugh.
Is there any movie coming up that has anything to do with like a zoo or animals?
I don't know. Or
we'll do a
time travel. It's a time travel movie.
Okay, we'll do it, or we'll do a title tie-in.
We'll figure out how to get up.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I gotta say, one of my favorite things in this movie were all towards the end, were all of the little not real cameos, but like fake cameos with
party.
All of the undead celebrities. And I loved the announcer, like the host at the party, where he's just like, and a quick note, there's a strict policy against making appearances for paparazzi's sake, or so he says something like to that effect. And I'm like, that's hilarious. And you've got like Elvis and James Dean and all just making little cameos here and there, Marilyn Monroe. And I'm like, this is hilarious.
It's like explaining away all of the Hollywood deaths. The 23 Club, the 27 Club, is
the
it?
27 Club, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to that point, everyone who had
the idea of all these Hollywood elites just would rather fake their own deaths than age appropriately is very funny to me. I will say, one of the things that, while all of this is happening, every house in this movie and every car I loved. There was like, it was the houses were all like decorated so fucking like, it was like so many powerful interior design choices were made for these fucking movies, for these set pieces. But it's like, this is just like odd, like the odd, what's it called? The like, I'm struggling with the word gaudy, not gaudy, but it was like, everything is just like over the top, like the opposite of minimalism.
Yeah. The very like was it opulent?
Opulent,
right?
Yes.
Like
bunch of rich people.
Luxury lifestyle, just over the top. And it also felt super.
So I guess the reason why I say it's Tim Burton, it felt very Beetlejuice to me, this movie. And I enjoyed the like cartoonishness of everything. Like this is why I said like this movie feels like a cartoon of a real horror movie. Like it
Right.
feels like because like the cartoon, like they straight up had a Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck fight with a shovel. Like they straight up bashed Meryl Streep's head into her rib cage and then stretched her head out again. Like it was a straight up fucking cartoons.
Like the only thing that was missing was like a box or a bomb to appear and it said like Acme on it.
I was expecting an Acme shovel or an Acme something. I mean, it's ridiculous. What are let's see, what are my notes here? Fucking Looney Tunes. And 37 years later, the funeral, where it shows Bruce Willis's character being completely like having lived forever through his family and all the real reasons why people would be remembered, is 2029. So we have 2029 to look forward to.
2020, 2029 is also the year in the Terminator.
This is like Chad likes universes. These are in universe. That becomes universe. Her. Yeah.
These are in universe.
I mean, it really.
I don't know. Terminator. I feel like we need to do Terminator with 2029 coming up, and
I don't know. Judgment Day,
AI and ChatGPT. I'm telling you.
All right, you want just a side note.
That's a whole other episode.
The peak use of ChatGPT is what I did yesterday at work. We were sitting around, and someone was like, "Hey, you speak Spanish, right? What is Bad Bunny saying?" And I was like, how do I translate this? And I'm like, you know what? This sounds like a job for ChatGPT. And I copied the song lyrics and I told ChatGPT to translate this into conversational English. Oh my God. And it did. And I was like, yeah, this is all the AI. This is all our hopes and dreams. The future of technology is translating Bad Bunny lyrics in an understandable way.
Oh my God.
So ridiculous. Tell me about the nuts and bolts. We have what are the Rotten Tomatoes?
All right, so Death Becomes Her came out July 31st of 1992. Was produced on a budget of $55 million and box office number, drum roll please, $149 million.
In $92.
In $92.
Wow, damn.
That's exactly
a huge movie. This is also like, I remember the 90s being the time I went to the movie the most. I'm sure 80s was like peak, I guess, but I remember it for like this era, like Jurassic Park. Yep. And that era was where every weekend you were at the movies if you could.
And you would run and get the newspaper and like check the times and then call and be on the phone and listen to the showtimes. So we have a Rotten Tomatoes score of 55%, which makes me sad. But what makes me even more sad is the audience score. Want to take a guess?
It's going to be lower.
Well, it's a little bit higher. It's 61%.
Oh, I see. I'm always translating these numbers for newer audiences. Pre-internet movies do not rate well with internet audiences, if that makes sense. So like they don't have the love of it that we did, the nostalgia, or like as we say on Woobro, the kid eyes. Yeah. For these sort of things. So like I always assume it's low. It's going to be low, like low. Like when your favorite movie on earth, you go back and you look at it and it's got like a 20 and you're like, how dare you? I know.
I don't even remember. Like, I don't even remember what Return to Oz is, but I'm like, I don't want to know. To me, it's perfect.
Yeah. Return to Oz. That's a horror movie.
Right?
Yeah.
Part of me still feels kind of bad I did that to you and Neri, but so good.
No, it was
good.
Worth the weird images that go into your brain from TikTok.
So those are the nuts and bolts of Death Becomes Her. Mike, you want to give your rating?
I think I'm gonna go. So it's hard because there's caveats, but for the average person, if I were to recommend this one, it's a 3.5 out of 5 because which is a recommendation, of course. Anything a 3 or higher is a recommendation. But you got to know what you're going into, that this is the 90s effects test run. So like you have to know that a lot of the plot of this movie is an excuse to do the special effects. So, and you could comes across in the story, like when they have the scene in the hospital with the dead body and the eyes and the neck and the heartbeat, and you see her skin being all like modeled and things. like it was, you know, like fun, but it was also like this is what the don't read too much into it, you know, like don't try to find meaning. It's just a like it's a fun, like you know how I go through that phase where I don't say anything's good or bad anymore. I just say whether I had fun or not, or whether I enjoyed it or not. And this is 100% a fun movie if you go in knowing. So 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah. I'm similar. I'm at 3.9, 3.9 out of 5. And I'm going to go 3.9 out of 5 undead celebrities.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you everybody for watching. We were right on the edge. Check us all out at Movie Bros and social media, What's Up Bro on YouTube. Thank you everybody for watching. Go watch Evil